All right, so we are stepping into one of our final sessions. And so you've learned how to be in prayer in your community. You've learned how to engage with the gospel and contextualize the gospel. You know, we've been talking about all these different things all the way up to how you start making disciples. Well, as you start making disciples, what you're going to see, as we talked about earlier, is churches will start to emerge. So what does that church look like? And that's what this whole concept of microgroup and micro church is. I want to talk to you about how you can have these different expressions of church and what a micro church actually is.
Yeah, so a micro church isn't just one model, one expression. We've called micro churches a lot of different things over the years.
House church, cell church, missional communities.
And they all, they all fit under the micro church umbrella. But like the reason that I landed on micro church is because I want to be led by the gospel. I'm not married to a model. I'm married to the gospel, and so it allows us to have various expressions of the gospel and various expressions of church, but it's still church. Because I mean, if we're being honest, the main expression of church, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. So I don't want y'all to hear us saying that a established congregation that has a building and brings people in on Sunday for large worship gatherings and Sunday schools and small groups. We're not saying that that's bad, but the thing about it is only about 30 to 40% of our culture is even willing to engage in that way.
Yeah, and so what microchurch does is it's an opportunity. Think about it as arrows in the quiver, or tools in the toolbox is probably even more helpful. Different projects, you need a different tool. And if we think about models of church as tools in the toolbox, there's going to be some, tools that you use to do certain projects and other tools that you use to do others. And the reality is when you're doing a project, you're probably using a few different kinds of tools. And the problem is, as the church, we oftentimes have just really leaned lately heavily into one way of doing and being the church. And so what we're doing here is giving you an opportunity to see another way of getting to be the church. Because at the heart of the church, it's actually not a building. It's actually not a certain organizational structure, but at the heart of every church is 5 marks. And those marks of a church are simply this: it's Christ-centered, gospel-centered. If it's not Christ-centered, gospel-centered, it can be doing some cool stuff, but at the very best, it's just a good organization. On top of that, you've got word and sacrament. At the heart of Jesus' church is the word and sacrament. It's the unchanging scriptures, the unchanging gospel, and where God promises to show up in those places, in communion and baptism and confession and absolution. So you've got Christ-centered, gospel-centered, word and sacrament. Then you have prayer. I think prayer is a central piece of the church because it's our communication and community with God. And then you move into mission. Mission is vitally important in the church because Jesus has a mission for his church, and he sends his people out constantly on mission in the community, in the places they live, work, learn, and play. And then finally, when you're engaging in those things, there's community. And the reason we talk about mission before we talk about community is because of something that I heard Matt Carter say a long time ago. He started a church in Austin called the Austin Stone. And I remember hearing him talk about mission, and he said, when we were trying to engage in our groups and trying to create community and then mission, we found out we didn't get mission and the community wasn't that great. He said, but when we decided to engage in mission first, what we found out was that when we engaged in mission first, we had great mission, but it also spurred on great community. And that's at the heart of this pathway. So when you talk about a church, don't start thinking about a size, an organizational structure, a building. Think about a people that are on mission, that are centered around those 5 things.
And so microchurch gives that flexibility to contextualize the gospel. And that's where listening, we keep going back to listening, but listening to your community is such a vital part of this, because once you listen to your community and you see the need, then microchurch is the way that you can help fill that need in being on mission with other believers. And that's what the church is. See, the church isn't a place, the church is a people. And so we get to be the church where we live, work, learn, and play.
And so microchurch opens up the opportunity to be a highly contextual expression of the church. So there's not a specific size or structure like you would find in traditional, what we would consider traditional church, but it's a lot of like what you see in the book of Acts, where the church is springing up in all these places. And so when you think microchurch, think about those 5 marks and think about something that can be deployed in the place it already is. You don't have to move people to a different place to engage in microchurches. Microchurches can happen in people's homes, they can happen in neighborhoods, they can happen in clubhouses, they could happen at a local bar or library or school or workplace. You name it, a microchurch can happen there. And microchurches can be led by all different kinds of leaders, average, everyday people who are making disciples in the places they live, work, learn, and play, and begin to lead these expressions of church in those places. And then microchurches are also designed to be highly multiplicable, if that's a word, right? You can multiply out microchurches. So because they don't have these huge structures, you're able to multiply that simple structure out in multiple places. So there are people in microchurches that are going to go through this training and learn how to be on mission where they're going. And then as they're on mission where they're going, they're going to start making disciples where they're at, and they're actually going to plant the church there. They're not going to try and bring all those people into their microchurch so their microchurch can grow. They're going to be people that actually go out and create microchurches of their own. So what you start to see is when you start engaging in microchurch or you engage in a missional pathway, you're going to start to see networks of churches form. And so that's the heart in this training. In this part of the training, we're going to look at different expressions of microchurch. We're going to learn from other people, because to be honest with you, microchurch is not something that any one person is just an expert in.
We're still figuring this thing out.
Yeah, we're all learning and we're all growing in this. And so this is an opportunity to learn and grow together and learn from some of the expressions, but to realize your expression of microchurch might look a little bit different. So when does it become microchurch? When you have those 5 things. Anything before that, just call it a micro group, because it's something that is moving toward becoming a church, but it has not become the church yet as an expression of the church until you have those 5 marks.
I think another important thing that you kind of hit on a little bit is networking. That, I don't think it's healthy for a microchurch to be kind of on its own.
Yeah.
It's really healthy to be networked with other microchurches, and so you can partner in lots of different ways, but you're also just not out there on an island, hopefully if you have a microchurch, there is some sort of multiplication that's going to happen at some point, and when that multiplication happens, one of the things that we often look at is that you're losing people or it's a loss, but no, you're actually gaining, because you stay networked together and you still have that relationship, but what you're doing is you're sending people instead of losing people.
Yeah, and so as a part of this training, you might be networked with somebody already. In fact, that's why you may be going through the training. But if not, that's why we launched missionarypathway.org. Missionarypathway.org is going to have a lot of resources, not just this training, but a lot of resources to help you on your missionary journey and to help you with microchurch. If you need a network to connect with, you can connect with the Kairos Network and become a part of that microchurch network. We have resources like Church at 1002 that are designed to support microchurches and help you with the things you need to be able to lead a microchurch. Even if your microchurch is something that needs help with teaching, we've got that to be able to help you out. If you need more training, we have that to help out. If you need discipleship resources to help train the disciples that you're leading beyond just disciple Bible or discovery Bible studies, we have those resources. So, microchurch is not something you want to do alone. Neither is church, right? When we're going to be the church, we're always the church in community. And so we've created a bunch of resources and a network to actually help you with that.